In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty, and darkness covered the surface of the deep. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. I believe that the Spirit of God was at the beginning of time. And I believe that this same Spirit came in a small, still voice to the prophet Elijah. And I believe that this Spirit was the breath that Jesus breathed on his disciples after his resurrection. And I believe that this same Spirit came down at Pentecost in flames of fire and a roaring wind. And I believe because the Scripture tells me it is so. One of the first instructions that that God told his creation in the human form was to take care of what I have created. That what I have created is good, and to take care of it. Let's have a word of prayer. Creator God, you are beyond our imagining, and yet you have come close to us. You have given us a place of dignity. Help us to elevate the poor to that place of dignity. You have made the powerful to be present in real ways. You made a home for the homeless, and you care for those in need, and you see the greatness of the small. Teach us to share with those who have less than enough, and let justice prevail for all living creatures, so that we will live in your reality and not our own, and to do your will, that one day the whole earth will be at peace. And let the words of my mouth and the meditation of all of our hearts be a worthy fragrance in your world. Amen. Amen. People wonder why I have this weird passion to rescue dogs. I'm out of my comfort zone. I'm comfortable in a pair of sweats or slacks and a t-shirt that has holes in it. So I dressed up for the occasion. But people know, don't say the dog word around me, because it's going to lead me into a long conversation. And when did this all begin? I can point to a time when we were serving the church in Cuero, October 2014. We took a bicycle ride to have a picnic supper underneath the bridge of the Guadalupe River. And as we came down off the road, a little black dog began to follow us. Bridget had been dumped. This place was a well-known dumping place for unwanted animals. Cats, kittens, dogs. It took us 4 days and 8 trips and a lot of chicken tenders to allow Bridget to trust us enough to get close enough for us to slip a rope around her neck. As soon as I touched her, she bellied up, and I knew that we could take her home. We weren't planning to keep her, but we did. And 13 years later, she's still very much a part of our family. The year after we moved to La Feria, I brought Lady home. Lady had been ignored, neglected, forgotten on a badly run shelter lot. I had to carry her out of the shelter yard, and then I had to carry her from the bar into our backyard. For 3 weeks, she hid underneath our patio furniture. She was too shy and very fearful. She bore the physical and emotional scars of abuse. Now, she's learned to work through a lot of those scars, but those scars will always be with her. And then in May 2014, I decided that I was going to start volunteering at the Seguin Animal Services. I was just an old lady that showed up and filled out the forms, and I never have left. And it was during that time that I realized that the people that work there are an amazing group of people. The things that they do to keep their unwanted animals alive and well, and to help move them on to a rescue or into adoption was amazing. And I stay committed to that group of Seguin Animal Service employees. But it was also there that I began to realize that the lessons I'm learning at the shelter were also life lessons for life out in the world with humans. Originally, I was just going to walk dogs and help socialize them, play with them a little bit. But I was constantly drawn to the fearful and the shy dogs. Now, these were the dogs that would hide in the corner of the shelter in the kennel and rarely make eye contact. And when they did look at you, there was nothing but fear. Some of them wanted to be touched, and some of them said, "Please don't touch me." I would never go into a kennel until I felt like there was an element of trust that had been established between us. Sometimes it was several times before I was able to go into the kennel. Sometimes they would growl at me, but I was always there working with them. One day, I showed up, and they always warned me about dogs. They said, "Don't touch that one, it's fearful." Well, that's just an open invitation. I'm just a girl who can't say no on this. And I walked back, and I saw this brown form that was frozen. And I would go and talk to her, and I'd go in her kennel. And then one day, I picked her up, and it was like picking up a 15-pound brick. She was literally frozen. I picked her up, you would have thought that she was dead. She was frozen. And every day I would take her out and lay her in the grass and let her soak up the sun. Today, Cassie is living the good life in Dallas. Sometimes you have to enter where they are to get them to come out into the world. I named these beautiful dogs shadow dogs, for they come in all shapes and sizes, all breeds, everything from a Chihuahua to a Mastiff. Any of them can have this fearful trait. Some just wish to be invisible. Others hope that someone will see them and care. And all of them have been hurt in some way by people who have considered them less than worthy. Our public shelters will always have shadow dogs. And you know, there's shadow dogs out in the world. Animals that have been hurt by life, afraid to move and not know where to go, so they hide. One such dog was found hidden in the corner of a neighbor's house. The man asked me if that was my dog. He knew it wasn't my dog. I guess he didn't know what to do, or didn't care to get involved, but at least he pointed the dog out to me. We took our dogs home. I went and got a towel, went back, picked up the dog. He was so full of mats and tangles and burrs, he could barely walk. We had him groomed. I had named him Chewie because he looked like a Star Wars character, Chewbacca. Well, I put his before and after picture on my Facebook page, and Millie Diker fell in love with him, and he's living the good life with Millie. And he thinks Millie's living a good life with him. And freedom rides. Freedom rides are what rescuers do when they take dogs from shelters into rescue or adoptions. A dog, when he smiles or she smiles on her freedom ride, lets me know that she knows she is free. Our recent foster, Shine, has the biggest smile when I told her that she was free and she never had to go back to the shelter. Dogs just know. You know, finding places for dogs to go and rescue is not easy, but it's always fulfilling. But you know what? The people of this world, there's millions of shadow people in the world walking around, hoping that nobody will see them and hoping they slip by life. They don't have to be homeless. They're shadow people that are living in houses, isolated. Several years ago, the Mary and Martha class decided to start putting together bags of grace. And this was for the homeless and the transients that come through Seguin. And people would say, homeless? We don't have any homeless. But they're here. They were there years ago when we started. There are even more of them here today. They're coming in greater numbers. And we, the people of the way, we are called to shine God's light into the shadows, to give people hope. The New Testament is full of freedom rides because Christ offers us freedom rides for each and every person in the world.
So Jesus was traveling what long? And Scripture tells us that he is headed to Galilee, and his route took him through Samaria. Now, that's a little strange. It's a strange route to take, because the folks that lived there did not get along well with the Jews. So why did Jesus go that way? I don't know. The bottom line is, this was the route that Jesus took. This is what the route that Jesus chose. This is the way Jesus took his followers. It was a long walk, a hot walk. I think their SUV had broken down. I'm not sure. And they were tired. They were hot. They were thirsty. And so what do you do when you're hot, thirsty? You stop and get a drink of water. And there was a well. A well that's called Jacob's well. The disciples went into town to get some food, and Jesus was there at the well. And somewhere around noon, a woman shows up. She had come to draw water from the well. Now, the fact that she was there in the middle of the day tells us a lot already. We're going to learn more as the encounter with Jesus transpires, but the simple fact that she shows up in the middle of the day already tells us a lot. You see, the women of the village would normally have gone to the well in the early morning, in the cool of the day, or later in the day, when it was early evening perhaps. And they would have gone together. They would have gone together to socialize and to visit, to catch up on things. They would have gone together for safety. But she comes in the middle of the day. She had come to draw water from that well. Her reputation and her past were not particularly stellar. She had been married numerous times, and as Jesus would point out to her, the man she was living with at the moment was not her husband. So like one of those shelter dogs that Darlene was talking about, just a moment ago. One of those dogs that she refers to as shadow creatures. This woman comes out of the shadows of her home in the middle of the day to go to the well. And I can imagine she didn't particularly want to be burdened with running into people that were going to do nothing more than put her down, criticize her. And if they didn't say anything, you know the looks and how you get your children over here. Don't get too close to them. She lived in the shadows, and she emerged only briefly to get what she needed to survive. She lived with shame. She lived with condemnation and rejection, with ridicule. And the less she had to endure the presence of others, the easier it was for her to come and go. But all of that changed that day at the well when she met Jesus. Now, a scared puppy or an older dog that's been abandoned because they're too old, or too big, or too small, or too something, would understand. Because you see, they understand. They recognize a tender hand. They know what a kind voice is like. They understand love and acceptance. Jesus saw that woman as someone special. Someone who had been created in the image of God. For Jesus, her gender did not matter. For Jesus, her ethnic background did not matter. The way she worshiped did not matter to Jesus. For Jesus, this was pretty simple. You're a child of God. You're created in the Father's image. Now that day by the well, Jesus did what Jesus so often does, so often did. He dealt with her sin. He told her some things about her personal life that a stranger wouldn't know. But Jesus tells her something that He has not yet told anyone else. That He's the living water. That He is the Messiah. And Jesus offers her a freedom ride. Jesus offers her the freedom ride of her life. And the good news is she accepted. She is freed from her past, from her guilt and rejection. Jesus let hope fill the void that had drained her very spirit. And what Jesus did for her, Jesus continues to do for each and every one of us. I want you to think for just a second about shadows. Think about the shadows that you pull back into on occasion. Don't tell me you don't, because I go right into those shadows with you sometimes. We all have a shadow that we pull back into sometimes. And in the quietness of the back of your mind, give those shadows a name. Do those shadows have something in common with the shadow dogs that just want to be loved? Do they have something in common with the woman at the well who was alone in a world that seemed to offer little hope? Jesus met a woman one day at a well. That's so like Jesus. Because you see, Jesus has a way of finding us wherever we are. Jesus has a way of meeting us where we need Him to be. And then Jesus offers us exactly what it is we need. Do you find yourself needing a little hope? A do-over? A renewed spirit? Someone to just love you and accept you? To care? Know that you will find all of that and more in Jesus. He is the one who meets us where we are, who offers us a freedom ride that will indeed last for eternity. And for that I say to God alone be the glory. Amen. Amen.